There's a trader who follows every single rule in his trading plan. Every entry criteria must be met. Every stop loss is placed exactly where his system says. Every position size is calculated to the dollar. He journals every trade. He reviews every session. He never revenge trades. He never moves his stops. He is the model of discipline. In 2 years of trading, he's lost $43,000. Meanwhile, there's another trader who breaks his rules constantly. He takes trades that don't quite meet all his criteria. He adjusts his stops mid-trade. He sometimes holds past his target. He occasionally trades when his system says not to. He's made over $120,000 in the same time period. If you've been told that discipline is the answer, that all you need to do is follow your plan and success will come, then what I'm about to tell you is going to make you uncomfortable. Because discipline is a lie. Not completely, but the way it's sold to you, the way every trading guru preaches it like gospel, it's destroying more accounts than it's saving. Today, we're going to expose the discipline trap. We're going to talk about why rigidly following rules can keep you broke. And we're going to redefine what real discipline actually looks like for profitable traders. Let's start with how we got here. Open any trading book, watch any trading course, listen to any profitable trader interview, and you'll hear the same thing. You need discipline. Stick to your plan. Follow your rules. Be consistent. And it sounds right. It feels right. After all, every other area of life rewards discipline. Want to get fit? Discipline. Want to build a business? Discipline. Want to master a skill? Discipline. So naturally, you bring that same mindset to trading. You create rules. You write them down. You commit to following them no matter what. And you tell yourself that if you just have enough discipline, you'll be profitable. But here's what nobody tells you. Discipline in trading is only valuable if what you're being disciplined about actually works. And for most traders, it doesn't. Let me introduce you to Andrew. He was an engineer, loved systems, loved rules. When he started trading, he spent 6 months building the perfect trading plan, backtested it, optimized it, wrote out every scenario. He had rules for entries, exits, position sizing, max daily loss, max weekly loss, when to trade, when not to trade. He followed that plan with military precision every single day for 18 months. He lost $38,000. When I reviewed his trades, I was stunned. He had done everything right. His discipline was flawless. He never deviated, not once. So what was the problem? The problem was the plan itself. His entry criteria were too rigid. His stop losses were too tight for the volatility he was trading. His profit targets were based on arbitrary levels, not market structure. His rules for when to trade filtered out some of the best opportunities. His discipline was perfect. His system was broken. And because he was so disciplined, he never questioned it. He just kept following the rules, losing money, and assuming he needed to be even more disciplined. This is the discipline trap. You're told that if you're losing money, it's because you're not disciplined enough. So you double down, you follow the rules even harder, and you keep losing. Nobody stops to ask, are these the right rules? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most trading plans are mediocre at best. They're based on generic advice, oversimplified backtests, or strategies that worked for someone else in different market conditions with a different personality. And when you apply iron discipline to a mediocre plan, you don't get extraordinary results. You get mediocre results consistently. You become very good at losing small amounts of money over and over again. Let's go deeper, because it's not just that discipline is applied to bad systems. It's that traders are being disciplined about the wrong things entirely. Most trading plans focus on mechanical rules. Enter here, exit there, risk this much, trade these hours. And traders spend all their discipline trying to follow those mechanical rules perfectly. But the mechanical stuff is the easy part. It's the emotional and psychological discipline that actually matters. And that's where most traders have zero discipline at all. Let me explain what I mean. I worked with a trader named Lisa. She had an incredibly detailed trading plan, 20-page document, every scenario covered, and she followed it religiously. But here's what her plan didn't cover: what to do when she was tired, what to do when she was angry after a fight with her spouse, what to do when she was feeling invincible after 3 wins in a row, what to do when she was desperate to make back yesterday's losses. So she'd follow all her mechanical rules perfectly, but she'd trade in terrible mental states. She'd take her A-plus setup, but she'd be emotionally compromised, and she'd manage the trade poorly. She'd move her stop because she was scared. She'd exit early because she was desperate to feel a win. She'd overtrade because she was trying to prove something to herself. Her mechanical discipline was perfect. Her psychological discipline was non-existent. And that's what was costing her. This is the second discipline lie, that discipline is about following rules. Real discipline is about managing yourself, your emotions, your ego, your mental state. The most disciplined thing you can do as a trader is not to take a perfect setup when you're in a terrible headspace. But most trading plans don't have a rule for that. They just say, take the setup. So you do, and you lose. Here's another example. Rigid discipline says, never move your stop loss. But what if the market structure changes? What if new information appears? What if you placed the stop poorly because you were rushing? A rigidly disciplined trader won't move it. They'll take the loss, even if it's now a stupid loss based on outdated information. They'll congratulate themselves for following the rules while their account bleeds. A truly disciplined trader will assess the situation and make the intelligent adjustment. They're not being undisciplined, they're being adaptive, and there's a massive difference. Now let me tell you about the trader I mentioned in the opening segment, the one who breaks rules and makes money. His name is Carlos, and when you watch him trade, he looks chaotic. He'll take a setup that's missing one of his criteria. He'll hold a trade longer than his plan says. He'll sometimes trade during hours he's not supposed to. He'll adjust his stops. He'll take partial profits at random levels. By traditional standards, he's undisciplined. But he's also consistently profitable. So what's going on? Here's the secret. Carlos isn't undisciplined. He's just disciplined about different things. He's not disciplined about mechanical rules. He's disciplined about principles. Let me break down the difference. A mechanical rule says I only take trades with a 2-to-1 reward-to-risk ratio. A principle says I only take trades where my potential gain significantly outweighs my potential loss. See the difference? The rule is rigid. The principle is flexible. Carlos follows the principle religiously, but he doesn't let an arbitrary number dictate whether he takes a trade or not. If he sees a setup with a 1.8-to-1 ratio, but everything else is perfect, he takes it, because the principle is sound, even if the exact ratio doesn't meet the rule. Most traders would pass on that trade. They'd tell themselves they're being disciplined. Carlos takes it and makes money. Here's another example. Carlos has a rule that he doesn't trade before 10 a.m. because the first 30 minutes are too volatile. But one morning, a perfect setup appears at 9:45 a.m. Everything aligns, the structure is clean, the risk is clear. He takes it, and he makes $2,400. A rigidly disciplined trader would have passed. They'd have watched the setup work without them and felt frustrated. And they'd tell themselves they did the right thing by sticking to the plan. But did they? Or did they let a rule override their judgment? This is what separates profitable traders from broke, disciplined traders. Profitable traders have principles they never violate, but they're flexible on the execution. Broke, disciplined traders have rules they never violate, even when those rules stop making sense. Carlos's principles: never risk more than he can afford to lose, never trade when emotionally compromised, never chase price, never ignore clear invalidation signals. Those are non-negotiable. But his entry criteria, his exact stop placement, his profit targets, those are guidelines. He follows them most of the time, but he's willing to adapt when the situation calls for it. And that adaptive discipline is what makes him profitable. So if rigid rule following isn't the answer, what is? What does real discipline actually look like in trading? Real discipline is about three things: self-awareness, risk management, and intelligent flexibility. Let's start with self-awareness. This is the discipline nobody talks about. The discipline to know when you shouldn't be trading at all. Real discipline is canceling your trading session because you didn't sleep well. Real discipline is walking away after 2 losses because you can feel the tilt creeping in. Real discipline is admitting you're trading out of boredom, not because your setup is there. I worked with a trader named Kevin who thought he was undisciplined because he only traded 3 days a week. He'd planned to trade 5 days, but he'd bail on 2 of them because something felt off. He was beating himself up for lacking consistency. But when we looked at his results, those 3 days he traded were all profitable. The days he forced himself to trade when something felt off, consistent losers. His instinct was smarter than his plan, and the real discipline was listening to that instinct, even when it meant breaking his trade every day rule. Next, risk management. This is the one area where discipline should be absolute. You don't get flexible on how much you're willing to lose, you don't get creative with position sizing, you don't negotiate with your max daily loss. Risk management is where rigid discipline saves you, because this is the discipline that keeps you alive. You can be flexible on entries, flexible on exits, flexible on strategy, but you cannot be flexible on risk. Andrew, the engineer I mentioned earlier, had this backwards. He was rigidly disciplined about his entries and exits, but he'd occasionally break his risk rules. Just this once, he'd tell himself, this setup is so good, I'll risk 3% instead of 1%. Those trades where he broke his risk rules, they were the ones that hurt him the most. Carlos, on the other hand, never violates his risk rules. Never. But he's loose on everything else, and that's why his account survives the inevitable losing streaks. Finally, intelligent flexibility. This is the hardest one to master because it requires judgment. It requires you to know when to follow the rule and when to break it. Here's a framework that helps. Ask yourself 2 questions before breaking any rule. Question 1. Am I breaking this rule because of emotion or because of logic? If it's emotion, fear, greed, revenge, boredom, don't break it. That's not flexibility. That's impulsivity. If it's logic, the setup is slightly different but still valid, the market structure has changed, new information has appeared, then breaking the rule might be intelligent. Question 2. If I break this rule and lose money, will I regret the decision or the outcome? If you'll regret the decision itself, don't break the rule. If you'll only regret the outcome but still believe the decision was sound, then breaking the rule might be justified. This is nuanced, this is hard, but this is what separates traders who adapt and survive from traders who rigidly follow rules into bankruptcy. So how do you rebuild your relationship with discipline? How do you escape the trap? Step 1. Audit your rules. Go through your trading plan and ask yourself, why do I have this rule? For each rule, you should have a clear, logical answer. Not because the course said so, or because that's what traders do. A real reason based on your edge, your psychology, your market. If you can't defend a rule, remove it. Your plan should be lean, only rules that serve a clear purpose. Step 2. Separate principles from tactics. Identify your non-negotiables, the principles you will never violate. For most traders, this should be risk management rules, rules about trading mental state, rules about cutting losses when invalidated. Everything else, entries, exits, time frames, indicators, those are tactics, and tactics can be flexible. Step 3, build psychological discipline. Create rules for your mental game. When are you not allowed to trade? What do you do when you're tilted? How do you handle winning streaks, losing streaks? Most trading plans have 0 rules about this. Add them and follow them with the same discipline you'd follow a risk rule. Step 4, test your flexibility. Start small. Identify one rule that feels overly rigid. Test breaking it once in a controlled way. Not emotionally, logically. See what happens. If breaking the rule leads to better results, the rule was bad. If breaking it leads to worse results, the rule was good. You've just learned something valuable either way. Carlos told me he used to have a rule that he traded only one currency pair, Euro-USD. That's it. He thought diversifying would make him lose focus. But one day, he saw a perfect setup on GBP-USD. Everything aligned. He broke his rule and took it. Made $1,800. He realized his rule wasn't protecting him. It was limiting him. So he changed it. Now he trades any major pair where his setup appears. That's intelligent flexibility. He didn't abandon all rules. He just updated one that wasn't serving him. Step 5. Track rule breaks. In your journal, note every time you break a rule. Write down why you broke it and what happened. Over time, you'll see patterns. Maybe you'll notice you break rules after losses, and those trades are always disasters. That's impulsive, not flexible. Stop doing that. Or maybe you'll notice you break your entry rules when the setup is slightly different, and those trades are profitable. That's adaptive. Keep doing that. The data will tell you the difference between good flexibility and bad discipline. Let me bring this home with one final story. Andrew, the engineer who lost $38,000 following his plan perfectly, eventually figured it out. He stopped worshiping discipline and started questioning his rules. He kept his risk management rules. Those stayed rigid, but he loosened everything else. He started trusting his judgment. He started adapting to what the market was showing him instead of forcing the market to fit his rules. Within 6 months, he was profitable. Not because he became more disciplined, because he became less rigid. He told me something I'll never forget. I thought discipline was about obedience. It's not. It's about integrity. I stay true to my principles, but I'm flexible on the execution. That's real discipline. That's the shift. Discipline is not blind obedience to rules. It's intelligent adherence to principles while adapting to reality. If you're disciplined and still broke, your discipline is the problem. You're being disciplined about the wrong things. You're following rules that don't work. You're rigidly executing a mediocre plan. Stop worshiping discipline. Start questioning your rules. Keep the principles, loosen the tactics. Build discipline around your mental state and risk management. Stay flexible everywhere else. That's how disciplined traders finally become profitable, not by following more rules, by following the right ones.